consistency is what I found is key. So flexing and exercising that creative muscle is just important as actually doing the thing. So I often bring it back as one of my weekly or monthly goals is to be creative. Sometimes that's like writing down 20 creative ideas for a video, any type of video, anything, and anything goes. Just to flex that muscle of being open to the universe and those ideas coming.
Hey there, I'm Chris, and welcome to This Professional Life, a channel where I share my insights, strategies, and ideas around business development, as well as documenting interesting business stories that inspire my creativity. And on today's podcast episode, a story about a music and video producer in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, who took his passion for media and turned it into a successful production house serving clients like United Way Alberta Region, the City of St. Albert, and ESPN. In high school, I had a passion for film and television and had dreams of starting my own studio. Growing up in an Asian family, however, film and television wasn't really allowed as a career choice, so I wasn't able to get formally trained in the field. But I never let go of that passion and have continued the journey of making films and shows like this podcast, whether in my professional or personal life. Therefore, I find it fascinating whenever I meet someone who has achieved success in the media production industry to learn more about their journey and how they got there. Just across from our studio is PlanIt Sound, a music and video production company that has quite an impressive roster of clients and portfolio of work. RJ Cui is CEO of PlanIt Sound, which together with his wife, Rowena, founded the company in 2009. Now, media production is a very competitive industry that requires the right passion and creativity in order to deliver a unique final product for clients. I was super excited to have RJ on my podcast because he also grew up in an Asian family, and we share some of the similar experiences when it came to career choices and professional pathway. RJ was born and raised in Edmonton, but actually spent 3 years of his early childhood in Ghana. RJ didn't remember much about those 3 years other than the feeling of being some of the best years of his younger life.
I don't remember much of it. I know I was still really young. Some of my, this will be embarrassing. So the one memory for some reason, and I don't know if this is a nightmare or an actual memory that sticks out, is we had a really large house there. Like the company really took care of our family. My dad says it's some of the best years of his life, and we had a lot of help. We had somebody to help cook and clean, and it was all part of the company. And so I remember this huge stairwell in the front foyer that I was trying to run up because I had to make it to the bathroom, and I ended up not quite making it.
Right.
For some reason, that sticks out in my head. And we also had this huge, beautiful tire swing in the backyard with lots of open space. I do remember a little of that, but yeah, I was a baby.
Yeah, and you said you've gone back to visit?
Never
have you?
have.
Never?
No, it's on the list.
It is?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's put a framework around this conversation a bit because for those who don't know PlanIt Sound, maybe give a little bit of background about the business.
Okay, so we specialize in videos, anthems, and events. When we started, it was a jingle company. Music production was my background. I was producing hip hop, country, pop, a lot of different genres of music for a lot of different artists, had my own hip hop group at the time as well. And that's where PlanIt Sound's roots were, because we had this basement studio that I had built out and invested in over the years. And so we started as an audio brand company. And at the time I was selling, $100 beats to unreliable rappers.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we sold an audio brand for $3,000. I have it framed in our office ever since then. To a car company. And I realized that, oh my gosh, these guys are spending, $50,000 to $100,000 a month sometimes in marketing and advertising. I'm like, this is what I want to do. And I still get to do music. It still combines something creative with that client-focused energy, which I always enjoyed and loved. And so that was kind of what spawned PlanIt Sound.
Okay, so PlanIt Sound, media, music, video production. So take me back now. When did you know that you wanted to get into media production, whether it's film or music? What, like, was it early in childhood or later in life? What was it? Or when was it?
So music has always been entrenched in everything that I do. I play the piano. I learned to play the organ from a very young age, self-taught on the guitar, classically trained, produced a lot of music, did a lot of writing, have done a lot of songwriting in my time. It's not the focus of what our company is. It's probably 10 to 15% of what we do. I mean, music is very entrenched in the videos that we do. I think that is a distinguishing factor in what helps us stand out is our music selection and how I combine that with the editing. But in terms of video, and which is my part of the business. Rowena, my lovely wife and business partner, does all of the events. But in terms of video, I didn't really know that was something that I loved. In hindsight, I remember any opportunity I could get to use my dad's VHS camcorder, I did. So in hindsight, I remember with my best friend, Daryl Bogusoff, creating, music videos, recreating scenes from Juice, like the gangster movie back in the day. Yeah. And I love that. So in hindsight now, I realize, and watching some of that stuff back, I wish I still had some of those old VHS tapes, but I did get a chance to watch them later in life. I sort of realized that from a very young age, I kind of had a natural knack for storytelling, but also for like video transitions. I understood how different angles in video using one camera could tell a different story. I understood how you could start from one direction of a room and transition to somebody coming down the stairs from another direction of the room, and it's a completely different room. So I got to really explore the video side of what I was doing from a very young age and come back to it later in adult life in my career, not really realizing like, oh man, I've been making videos forever. Yeah.
Did you have a career outside of film music production prior to this, or have you since, call it after high school till now?
Absolutely not. Yeah. Okay. So my career path was all over the place. From high school, I didn't even want to go to university. Was, typical Asian family, pretty much forced to go and follow in my big brother's footsteps, Now I don't think that's really a natural path anymore. That makes sense that anyways, I think there's other pathways to find success these days. So, but at that time I was forced to go to university and I took sociology as my major. So a BA, was my major, music was my minor. And absolutely useless degree. But funny enough, I kind of was backwards from the typical scenario because when I graduated, so going through university, me and my group of friends were all doing youth work. So crisis interventions, community support work, family support work, suicide interventions, because it paid really well. It was like 18 to 20 bucks an hour at the time. A lot of times it gave us the opportunity to be hanging out with the kid while they were watching TV and we could be reading a book and studying for school. And so it was, it really worked with what we were doing. And then when I graduated, I was kind of like the only person in the world utilizing my BA because with my soc major, I was doing youth work and my sociology major allowed me to get into a little bit of a higher bracket. So I was getting, 25 bucks an hour at some of the different institutions that I was working at. And then of course, music, I was teaching music on the side. I was producing music. And so that was where I lived, for a few years before I finally got into radio advertising. So I got to be part of the Bounce 91.7, kind of on the rise, being the only hit music station, the only station doing that format at the time. Spent some time at Sonic as well. And then from there, it was just like, and of course, producing music on the side the entire time. And anytime I got to help my clients more creatively when it came to like their radio ads or helping writing the scripts or coming up with campaigns, I found a lot of success and a lot of joy doing that with clients. So I wanted to do that more. So when it got to a point where I was going in like 5-year waves at the time where I would get bored and just kind of question everything I was doing. And I still go through that now. And so I got to that point where it was like a make or break for me. It was like, I need to, I'm not showing up for work. I'm doing stupid shit. I'm not performing my best, that I'm not giving my all. And there were some other personal things that were tied to that transition time for me, where I just really needed to get more creative focused. And that was when the idea for PlanIt Sound was really born.
It's scary crazy how close your story is to mine
Really?
as well.
I thought it was the only one.
Well, same thing, right? Growing up in an Asian family.
Yes.
I would say I would use the word forced as well.
Yes.
Like it was like, get your degree first and then go do what you love. And I learned the hard way that you put so much energy and time into that 4-year bachelor's. I actually, BEd was mine, Bachelor of Education.
Yeah.
Now for me, I wouldn't say it was quite useless because the first few years for me, it provided a living, right? As my first professional career. But the sentiment's the same. It was like, get the degree first. And then if you want to go do film school, do that stuff afterwards.
Yes.
What I realized was you do that bachelor's, you go out to get the job, then you get a mortgage for a house because you meet your future wife.
Right.
Then you start contemplating kids, you go traveling. And it's like, where does that go? And so it's interesting because when I shifted professional careers from education into private finance, I did a lot of videos and corporate videos for clients. And that was like that creative part. So it really resonates with me when you just walk me through that. And we're about the same age. So talk to me a bit about that too, though, because I want to dive a little bit about today's generation. Because I guess, you're a parent, I'm a parent. I have a totally different approach with my kids. And it's not so much of like, just go do whatever, but it's like, find what you're interested in and work on that skill and then be good at it because the opportunities are endless. I think the situation may have been a little different when we were younger, but any kid with a camera could start a YouTube channel right now if they wanted to and put their heart into it.
And my son has, my eldest has. He's got a YouTube channel that has literally more subscribers than mine. To be fair, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that, but I don't really, YouTube channel was not really what I was focused on building. I'm focused on building content and creativity for a lot of other clients. But there was a period in COVID where I thought, you know what, maybe I do want to start a YouTube channel. So I did do a little bit of that, but he uploads a ton. Yeah. And some of his, he's got thousands and thousands of views on some of his videos.
Crazy.
And about nothing, right? It's like, I don't get it. And I produced this super slick, dope intro for his YouTube channel that he does not want to use. Yeah. He wants nothing to do with it. I'm like, no YouTuber's going to have an intro like this. Clients pay me $30,000 for this guy. And he's like, no, I don't want it. And I think that's kind of the key is like, I just really want to listen to my kids, you know? Not that my parents didn't listen to me, but I think we came of a generation where it's like, listen, this is what we want you to do. You're our kid. You got to listen. You got to be a doctor. You got to be a nurse. You're going to go to university. And there was a reason for that. That's what success looked like then, you know? Yeah. And so they were doing the best with what they understood and knew how. And that was the best at that time. Yeah. It's not the best anymore, you know? Yeah. I want my son to be a rapper. Yeah. I don't want him to be a doctor. I want him to have the freedom and luxury of his time and his skill set and really amplifying those things with him and helping him do those things. And, by nature, he's probably not going to want to be a rapper. Yeah. Right? So I think that we really focus on trying to listen to our kids and, but Chris, it's like, and you understand as a parent, it's like such a fine line because there's a point of like listening to them and then you have to kind of put the foot down and be like, okay, now you're not doing anything. Right. Like now you're not choosing anything, exactly. Right? So we have to like force you to get into certain things so you can try it. And if you hate it, then we'll stop it. Yeah. I'm not going to force you to do piano lessons for 15 years if you're going to hate it.
Exactly.
But there's a fine line between, do I regret being forced to going to university? Absolutely not. Yeah. I made my best friends in university. I learned a ton outside of the classrooms, not necessarily inside the classrooms, but it was such a huge part in defining who I was growing into an adult that I don't think I would have learned those values and lessons had I not gone to university. So I also am a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. You go on the path that you are for a reason. And, you know, if I wasn't choosing anything and I was going to sit around in a basement and not do anything with my life for those 4 years, force me to go to university, you know? If it's a choice between, oh, you know, Pop, I want to be an actor. I want to move to LA and I really want to go all out and pursue it, you know? Is that a big risk that is not at maybe a fallback like university? Absolutely. But go and do that.
Yeah.
Follow that dream, follow that inspiration. Let me help you go and do that.
Yeah.
As long as it's something. I don't want you to just sit around and do nothing.
Well, and it's also, and to your point, you mentioned this in what you just said there is putting your all into it. And that's what I've told my kids too. It's like, I'm open to you choosing whatever and exploring, but you got to give it your all, right? You can't just half-ass it, right? Like you really got to go in on it.
100%.
Give it a good go. And then if you determine, it's not for me, I don't like to do it, then like we can switch up, right? But so speaking of back in the day, and I don't know so much if this is back in the day, but my first video that I saw of you on Instagram was with you and Josh Classen, and he's a meteorologist at CTV. But before
Chief meteorologist, excuse me.
Oh, sorry, chief meteorologist. Mm-hmm. Tell me about what the both of you guys did before, and I think you still do. But what was that life like, and what did you do with Josh?
Okay, so. It's funny, Josh and I really connected immediately because of this history. You know, he looks like your everyday weatherman. He is just so good at what he does and has been doing it for so long. And with all of this volatile transition at CTV and in the media industry, he has remained a staple in our community for what he does because that's how good he is. And when we met, I was never really, everybody, you know, it's so funny, like when I'm with him hanging out and we're out in the street or whatever, you know, and he gets stopped all the time and I'm just like, he's Josh, right? Like he's my own boy, Josh. And so for me, it was never really that, it's Josh from CTV because the moment we started talking, we connected on hip hop. He's a real legit hip hop head. And like me, before his media career, he had a hip hop group with his brother. A very good, like well-established, you know, in Saskatchewan or so. I can't remember
in
where.
Saskatchewan.
Yeah. I don't know where they were.
Right.
But he had this hip hop group of like, and when you hear him rap, you know, okay, so how we made that connection is when we opened our first office in St. Albert. We had been around for a couple years already, but we bought a house in St. Albert, opened our first office in St. Albert, and we had a little bit of a launch party. And so we had worked with Josh on different events that we had. I hadn't really met or hung out with him yet, you know, 15 years ago now. And so invited him to MC the party and be the host. And we had heard that he raps. I'm like, okay, that's kitschy. You know, that's cute. Let's get him to, you know, music is our thing. Let's get him to rap, right? Let's get him to perform. Why don't you perform a couple songs? Almost a little bit of hateration in the back of my, like, come on, like, really?
This guy can't do it.
The weatherman, right? Like, I hadn't seen any of his stuff. And dude, like, he came in and just slayed for like 12 minutes straight, lyric after lyric, like I had never heard before. Easily one of my top 5 favorite lyricists of all time, ever, of all time. And so that's how we connected. And I don't think he knew that I really rapped. And so, we sort of connected on music. And more recently, in the last couple years, we got a little thing. Like, I'm like, yo, why don't you come to the studio and let's drop something for fun? And next thing you know, it was not much for like, we put it out and people were like, yo, this is dope. And so we ended up, putting out a few more things and then a few more things. And so we got a little group. It's called Jing and Jock, JINGNJOC.
Okay.
And we got some stuff on Spotify and, but we both have our careers and now we get to come back to music as truly like something to fill our cup. You know,
Yeah.
it's like we don't need the $100 we don't need the $300 to perform. Like we're good.
Yeah.
It's like we have an hour that we can carve out from our week.
Yeah.
Let's do something that's going to fill our cup and fill our soul. And that's what, Jing and Jock is for the both of us.
How do you specifically, in terms of your creative process, like what inspires you? What gets the creative juices going when you're coming up, whether it's for PlanIt Sound or these creative projects with Josh? Like, where do you get the inspiration, or what is your process to get that creativity out?
Yeah, I think it's different every time. I think it comes from a different place or a different reason every time. Maybe it comes from a music bed, or it comes from a tagline that a client has said, or a tagline that that we thought of as a team when we were in our initial discovery meeting. So I think it really comes from different places all the time. I think consistency is what I found is key. So flexing and exercising that creative muscle is just important as actually doing the thing. So I often bring it back as one of my weekly or monthly goals is to like be creative. Sometimes that's like writing down 20 creative ideas for a video, any type of video, anything, and anything goes. Just to flex that muscle of being open to the universe and those ideas coming.
Right.
Because when you're not doing that, I feel like, for me anyways, I've gotten stumped a little bit. It's been like, it's just, what can we do? How can we make this different? How can we make this cool? And when I'm being consistent and working that muscle and utilizing it, I find that that's when I'm more open to the universe and those creative ideas kind of being filtered through me.
Have you had, what are some of your inspirational music artists growing up?
Man, I mean, I have a brother who's 7 years older than me. So I was very lucky to have all the dope new music in the house and around me before any of my friends did. Yeah. And I also had this really dope friend, Janelle, in LA, who we would go back and forth, which was crazy at the time. Between I was like, 9 to 12 years old, our parents would fly us by ourselves back and forth to spend a month of the summer with each other. So I'd spend time in LA and he'd spend time here. And so, at a time where you could put a tape in a tape deck in LA and record the radio and like get the dopest shit and come back with like, what is that? That's Ice Cube. What is, like, I've never heard any of this stuff before. And so yeah, I was really lucky to like have that influence, that musical influence in my life kind of coming in all the time.
It's interesting because I remember it was very tough to get the music I wanted to listen to, because a buddy would bring it to school and you're like, like I remember my first cassette I ever bought was Def Leppard.
Yes.
I loved to this day. And I the other day we're driving home and I'm like, kids, you gotta listen. Yeah. And there's a couple songs that have like the sickest guitar riffs. And my son's taking guitar lessons. I'm like, if you can learn that, I'm bowing down. Yeah. So, but I remember when I first got that tape, I'd go, Mom, can we go to like Kmart or whatever it was, Zeller's, and go to the music center? She's like, what is this stuff? She's like, it's just like this demon-looking picture on it. And she's like,
was the devil at that time.
I don't want to buy you this. I'm like, no, Mom, it's okay.
100%.
And it's like, and I remember my first rap CD I bought, or cassette, I guess, was when I hit grade 7. Yeah. Because I took the bus home myself. And so my buddies and I were able to go to the mall. Yeah. And I was like, I had saved up like, $12 just to get this kit. Yeah. And that was the first time I was able to get that, because in Canada, I don't recall that there was a station that was dedicated to like hip hop music. I think Much Music on TV was the closest thing I can remember. Yeah. The Bounce would be the closest thing that came to that format. Yeah. And so, recording things off the radio, it's normally pop or country, and you wouldn't get a lot of that. But then you would watch Much Music. These rap like, how do I get a hold of that stuff? So that's right. Very, very cool that you got this, connection in LA at a young age to get that. I was just working on this documentary about with a good friend of ours, Arlo Maverick, who is
is shooting this documentary showcasing one of the b-boy groups, the initial b-boy groups of the hip-hop community here in Edmonton, the Untouchable crew, that if you weren't in that community or in that sort of environment, you have no idea the way that this crew has built and shaped the roots of hip-hop as we know it in Edmonton. And just filtering through some of these interviews of these guys talking about a time that we grew up in, they're a bit older than us, and they're sort of the slightly older generation, but still the same time of like, you had to wait for Rap City once a week.
Yeah.
That's where you got your rap music.
Yeah.
And you couldn't just watch it again. That was, if you liked Ice Cube's video, you prayed, hopefully it's going to get played again next week on Rap City, because that was the only way you could check that, You couldn't go to Spotify, you couldn't go to YouTube at any given time in your pocket, pull it out and watch and listen to that shit. So that was like, and different level of excitement to like save up that allowance.
Yep.
Go to HMV or A&B Sound or wherever we're going, and like buy that cassette tape, open it up and physically like read all of the credits of the songs and like, Dr. Dre produced that. And to have that tangible thing in your hand that you treasured and cherished that got all faded because your mom put it in the washing machine. It was in your pocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you still have that cassette tape like years later. So just a nostalgia, and I'm a dinosaur in that way where I love and appreciate all that, but I get with the times too, like I love having that at my fingertips at any given time with technology, in my pocket. So
and I'm with you, like especially as I said, like on driving home, can load up, Amazon Music, and here's Def Leppard, kids, we can listen to it. But I'm with you though, dinosaur as well, like there's something about that I think it's a bit lost. Yeah. I think. And it makes us sound a little old, but I truly feel like that's part of the art. Yeah. Like it encompass that. And I remember the illustrators too, like they used to spend time and money building those covers. Like it wasn't just a photo slapped onto it. It's like took effort and some creativity and some thought behind it.
100%. Jing and Jock, we did a Christmas song that they were playing on the air. Every year we get to do like, a Halloween song with Robbie the intern and Josh and I. And the Christmas song we did last season, Josh put together this album cover. He just like used an old random picture from his phone of his kids at the Christmas tree and like slapped the title on it. I'm like, dude, we can't put this out. Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, have you seen what album covers look like now? Yeah. And so I had to like do a quick, top 40 album covers looking on Spotify. I'm like, man, to your point, like this is not an era of where we grew up and where like that was the part of the art of the presentation of that record was the art and the way that was laid out. When we were producing and putting out records as Dark Sun Tribe, my hip hop group, the album, the way the album was pieced together of those 15 songs was themed. There was a reason why track 2 was track 2, why we wanted you to hear that second. Yeah. Every space in between each song was timed and strategic and thoughtful. Whereas now it's like single, picture, title, slap it up.
Whatever goes viral.
Put it out. Yeah, just dry. So, there's a little bit less of that foresight. And I think it just has to do with, the speed at which we're now consuming media is just crazy, right?
It is, yeah. I want to shift the focus a little bit to the business of PlanIt Sound. Now, part of it too is, I'm curious, but what's like the craziest project you've worked on at PlanIt Sound?
Man, the craziest project. Okay, I mean, I can give you an example right now that's top of mind because I feel like every project is unique and has its own level of crazy in it. Something that's top of mind, which we've talked about recently, is India Rising. So it's a project that we shot. A friend of mine who's actually, works out of our studio now, Bad Films, Mo and Maz, and then Nav as well, who is part of India Rising. We had this opportunity to go out and film this documentary that is the first time ever a pro Indian basketball team was formed to compete in the TBT, ESPN's amateur competition, but NBA ballers still play in this tournament for $1 million.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Yeah.
the first time that this East Indian team was going to be formed, all pro guys. And so we had this opportunity to go out and shoot it, and it was going to be tied to this production company out of the States that had this huge budget that was going to do it. It was like $250,000 budget or something like that. And so we're all set, and everything was already very last minute. The shoot was going to happen a week out. It was like already very last minute and a tight schedule. And then for whatever reason, there were some rights issues they had with India Rising and the production company that didn't end up working out, and the production company backed out. So there was no budget. And those are kind of those roadblocks where, it's like a crazy roadblock where everybody is sort of deflated,
Right.
and it's like things were really ramping up, the details were coming together, and then suddenly it's gone. Whereas my mindset was like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
I'm like, Mo, this is perfect. We're the production crew, We don't really need that production crew and just for us to go out and be shooters. We can take on a little bit more of a creative capacity now and go out and do it for less money, lower our rates. But I'm also a big fan of doing things for the right reason. The money will follow. And when you make the right creative decision and you decide things based on what you want to do, good things will always come of that. And I'm like, man, I want to go to Toronto. I want to go to New York. I want to shoot this tournament. This is a really dope idea that we need to be a part of. And so fast forward, we went out, we shot it. They covered our expenses to go out. We did it for a very small fee. But now there's an opportunity that maybe ESPN wants to pick this thing up, and it's going to be a full-fledged documentary. So just a crazy story where you never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah.
And I think if you're excited to do something and your heart is in it and it's like up your alley like basketball is for me, do it. Do that shit,
Yeah.
And good things will always come of that.
Yeah. As an entrepreneur and an owner, talk to me about the journey you've gone through and continue to go through. What are some of the challenges you faced as an entrepreneur? And I mean, PlanIt Sound was operational during COVID, and I've seen some of the videos about, helping small businesses through and giving them some ideas. But tell me a little bit about the entrepreneurial side of running PlanIt Sound.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the entrepreneurial spirit was ingrained for me from a really, really young age. I grew up in a convenience store. My parents owned 3 Red Roosters. And so from a very young age, as soon as I was tall enough to stand on a milk crate, I was serving customers at the cash register. I was like stocking shelves and making sure all of the labels were facing forward. I was doing all of these little things and, going with my parents early before I was even in kindergarten to open the store at 7 a.m. They had to bribe me with a sausage McMuffin to get me up and go to the store.
Right.
And that's what I knew. I hang out at the back of my parents' shop, eat unlimited chips and chocolate and slushes. That was my payment for when I started working, was I got to get this sugar addiction, which I'm still facing today. So from a very young age, that was kind of really ingrained in me. So some of those, I think that was a real advantage for us in starting PlanIt Sound and understanding some of the ins and outs of what comes along with that. It's unlimited freedom and flexibility with an unlimited grind and hard days all at the same time, And so being able to understand that, I think from a very young age really translated into what we do at PlanIt Sound. So I think one of the other advantages, when companies start up is we started with the first year or two making no money, but my wife, girlfriend at the time, Rowena, continued with her full-time job. She kept anything she touches turns to gold. So every agency she was at with the youth work we were doing, she kept getting promoted and promoted and promoted. Whereas I was just slacking and doing just enough to get paid and hang out with the kids just the all heart part of it, right? Where she was very good at the programming and the program design and stuff. And so she continued doing that so that we had a full-time income while we started PlanIt Sound together as partners. And that was how we were able to do it. It was, calculated risk. It was not like, okay, let's lose our shorts here and do the best we can. It was a calculated risk. And we knew the first few years were going to be hard to get through that. But eventually, she was able to quit, and we were able to move forward, get an office, and actually, do the thing full force. But yeah, so I think there were a lot of pieces. And another advantage to that is when we focused on the skill sets that we already had. So as an audio brand company, we already had this, $50,000 studio that I had been investing in over a decade that was there. And let's utilize that and build something off of that and build something off my skill set with people and music production and your skill set of being community focused. And I think we were able to start in the first couple of years without a really high overhead that was really help us able to push through those difficult times.
Yeah. Over the last, I would say 5 years, five to 10 years, I would say, but more so in the last 5 years, a lot of brands and companies are starting to really, really embrace digital content, whether it's in the form of short form videos, long form videos. What are you seeing from, your clients and the trends and where things are going? Because the stuff you produce is like super high level production
Thanks,
quality.
man. Thank you.
Love your stuff.
Thank you.
What are you seeing some trends on your side for your clients?
Yeah, 5 years is a great mark, I think 5 years ago, Chris, we spent a lot of time convincing clients that they needed video.
Right?
Yeah. Where now that's a joke. You need video. It's just how much video can I do for X amount of money is really what they're asking, right? So I think that has been a really great thing. And the reason why PlanIt Sound has been able to explode in the last decade the way that we have is because the timing of just being a creator during that time and a lot of these prosumer tools being much more readily available where you don't have to spend $60,000 on a red camera, you still got to spend 10 probably after the camera and a few lenses and stuff. But the quality that you can get out of doing that is so close, so close that as for the type of stuff that we do and the type of work that our clients need, most people can't tell. So I think that shift, and again, going back to the rate at which we're consuming video, especially pulling through a time like COVID, after the first year of COVID, when everybody realized shit, this is happening.
Yeah.
We're still here.
Yeah.
Our clients had to really buckle down and be okay, well, the only way we can reach our clients, our people right now, our audience is through video.
Yeah.
We had some of our busiest years through COVID. So absolutely grateful for that. And I feel terrible sometimes thinking that way, even saying that out loud when I know that companies were devastated and not making it through that time. But just an observation that because of the way that we were consuming video, we just ended up, having a couple years of some of the busiest time, helping our clients really reach their audiences in a creative way through video.
Yeah. Your client base, does it span North America, Canada, US, or kind of the world?
Yeah, all over the world. I mean, 99% of the work we do is local and community based. Yeah. Just because that we're here, but we've done tons of work in Asia. We do work in the States. I've been traveling a lot over the last couple of years. I sort of put that energy out there. I sound a little more and more like my wife these days. She's a very put the energy out there and it will come type of person. And where I'm no, you make those decisions for those things to happen. So I can be a little bit more of her and she could be a little bit more of me. But I think in this particular case, I definitely was putting out more of the energy of you know what? I love traveling. I love working and traveling and shooting these kind of projects in other places. And it's inspiring to me to be creative in that way. And I just ended up having, a lot of those things come our way. So, but still the majority of the stuff we do is here.
That's why you and your wife are good partners. You balance each other out, right?
It's true. We couldn't be, Chris, more opposite of each other. Yeah. But where our values and our morals align. Yeah. And that's what makes it work, We have tough times. We always go through tough times. It's never easy, especially running a business together, never mind just the marriage piece alone with kids, right? But I think it certainly keeps it interesting that we're completely opposite ends of the spectrum in the way that we do things, in our tastes, in our decor, in all of that stuff. But, when our values and our morals align, and that's what continues to make sense for us.
Yeah. final thoughts here on the future of media, whether it's music or video production. What are your thoughts?
You know, I feel like this trend of creators and video and creative video production and audio and storytelling will continue, you know? I think there's all of this, and being a dinosaur, I'm not as in tune with AI as I need to be, but I make a good habit of like making sure that I force myself to not be a dinosaur in certain cases and
Right.
and learn the things that I need to be learning to stay up to date with what we do in the media industry. And I think that there will always be a need for human storytelling. I think that human capacity gives us a soul in everything that we do that will never be replaced. And I think there are so many talented creators, directors, cinematographers, AI editors that are out there. And I think find that thing that can really help you to stand out. For me, I believe that's directing and storytelling. And I'm able to infuse a certain style and soul into a production that no computer or other person has that particular lens or perspective. And I think that's the important point for everybody to understand their own lens and their own perspective, their own value and strength, and infuse that into the work that they're doing.
Yeah, especially on the creator side, there's been a lot of concern with AI. Like, oh, this is like, look at it generate these fabulous images.
Crazy, yeah.
It's crazy images. But I agree with you. At the end of the day, that soul behind it. And I see it too when you're generating content from AI. It's just taking from what it reads, right? From the text out there. And it tries to put it together in a way that makes sense for us to read their output. But I still feel that creative aspect of the human perspective will be needed, especially in the creative space like media.
For sure. And people using AI today know that. And everybody, I think you see it, but it's like, okay, yeah, sure, it can write this this press release for you, but you still need to revise and refine it and make it your own. So
Yeah.
it's not 100% there yet, but I mean, that's today. Like,
Yeah.
where is that going to be 2 weeks from now? Where is that going to be 5 years from now? In Edmonton, I've shot at some of these facilities that are literally leading the world in AI, like the world, beyond what's happening in California and New York and all of these business hubs. The AI hubs leaders are right here in Edmonton on Jasper Avenue.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucking cool, right?
Yeah.
And so to think that we get to be part of that community and part of this this rise of what's happening right now, right here in Edmonton, is super exciting. So I mean, if this is where we're at today, where you can't tell the difference between Jay-Z rapping and AI
Yeah.
and Jay-Z,
Yeah.
like, dude, where are we going to be at 5 years from now, right? So that's my thoughts on today. That's kind of in flux and might always be changing. I just have to believe and have faith that human connection and soul will always be necessary and will always kind of rise above any of that,
That's RJ Cui, CEO of PlanIt Sound. I highly recommend you check out all his stuff on YouTube and Instagram, especially those rap jingles that he produced. Thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure to hit that follow button on whatever platform you're listening to this episode on so you get notifications of new episodes when they are released. I'm Chris Young, and I hope to catch you in the next episode.